starting ever since from childhood up until this day?
Well, I'm not going to tell you this story, but I think I have to write a book about it, and then I'll give it to you, then you'll read it.
Okay. It's for our audience. It's not
okay.
for me.
Okay.
You understand?
I understand. Actually, it's too long to tell the whole story, but I will try to put it in a manner
different
where
chapters.
Yeah. Well, I was born and grew up here in Addis. I went to school in Addis High School, and I went to the Teachers Training Institute in Harar.
Okay.
And then I became a teacher.
All right.
And then I was assigned in the Wollo region.
Okay.
I worked there in 3-4 different parts of Wollo. Then after that, during the Derg regime, during the Red Terror, I had to leave the country.
Okay.
Unfortunately, I left Ethiopia and then I went to Djibouti. I stayed in Djibouti for about maybe 2.5 years. And then when I was there, when I was here, actually I studied music, and then I was playing krar. I learned it from my father, and then I went to Yared Music School too. And then when I went to Djibouti, during that military regime, you have so much to tell. You have so much feelings in the country, what happened in the people, everything, And also I left my home, that I've never expected to leave the home. And then that all the pain in me, and then, I've been chasing by the military, so I escaped from that a couple of times. I escaped from prison, and I had all this, nightmares. And when I was in Djibouti, I started playing music, and then I was playing all the situations that I've been in the past. And then I made 3 recordings in Djibouti. I stayed there for 2.5 years, and then I left to Paris. I lived in Paris for almost 2 years and 6 months, something like that. And then I went to US, and I first arrived in Pennsylvania and Philadelphia. I went to school in Philly. I went to a college called, actually first I went to Philadelphia, and then in Philadelphia I went to a college, and then I started learning music. And then from that I started playing the krar and started making recording. And then I became a really recognized musician in America, and then I had the chance to play at Carnegie Hall, which is one of the biggest hall in the world. And then actually the 3 Africans first got the chance to play at Carnegie Hall for the first time when I was there. 3, one from Ethiopia, the other one from Senegal, and the other one was from Mozambique. Actually, he used to teach at the University of Washington, Seattle. And the 3 of us, for the first time, we performed at Carnegie Hall. And the concert was called Africa on a Triple Bill. Probably you'll find that one. Africa on a Triple Bill. So the 3 of us performed at Carnegie Hall, and then from that success, actually, I happen to be an international artist. So I've been invited by many different countries in the world. And then finally, I came here as a music ambassador to perform at the American Embassy. During that time, the ambassador was Mr. David Sheen. You probably might have heard of him. And then I was invited to play at the American Embassy, and all the ministers were invited to listen to my music. And then when I was here, I also went to the Yared Music School to perform. And then, when I see Addis Ababa and traveled to some parts of Ethiopia, it was completely, there was a lot of change in terms of population, in terms of poor sanitation and hygiene, and it was unbelievably, it was painful for me to see that, because I was born and grew up in the city. I've never seen such a drastic change, in my life. And then I was really got bitten by such a ridiculous energy to feel that, what am I going to do? I mean, who am I? And I was born here and grew up here. And then it wasn't like this, So many different people comes, the population grew up so fast. And everywhere you go, I mean, the area is not really good. So I went back to Washington, and then I decided to come back to Ethiopia and do some cleanups. And then I thought of, just...
Then you launched a cleaning campaign.
Yeah, and then it was launched at the American Embassy. And all the ministers came, and the cleanup launched here. And then I started the cleanup. That one. So here I am. So
even you do have an amazing experience in Redwa.
Yeah,
a very funny
story. Definitely.
Can you tell us about it?
There are so many different stories. Actually, here in the Redwa, actually,
a very drunk guy.
Yeah, a very drunk guy was peeing on the street. On the little square, actually. And that little square, I was putting trees and flowers, and it was nice. And one night I had, there was a concert that night. And then I watched that concert, and I came out. And then these two guys, one is standing, he's not doing anything. And the other guy was like peeing on that flower and grass where I was, where I cleaned up. And then I said, "Hey, what the hell are you doing?" And his friends, they were talking about me. The guy who was standing there was saying, "Wow, watch out. If you guys ever
abruptly you've been shown up."
And then all of a sudden, in the middle of nowhere, I just stood right in front of that guy. He said, "Oh my God, before I finished my sentence, here is the man coming in from..." And the guy turned around and he saw me. He didn't finish it. He held his stuff and then he was running. And there were so many incidents that I've been facing,
This is one story, a very funny story related to your cleaning campaign.
This is, and also there is another one. This is funny.
Can you add?
Okay. This is right on Agar Fikr, towards the Georgis Church. So Agar Fikr Theater is here. And there is a wall on the other side. And then when I was working on Ras Makonnen area, I was cleaning up Ras Makonnen area. It was so beautiful. I was doing the terrace, and then it was so beautiful. So I wanted to see that terrace from Georgis, so I can be able to see it further and the whole scope. And then when I was, and this guy, and he's like a modern guy. He has got boots and jeans, and he's like a nice looking guy. He was holding his phone like this, and then he was like peeing like...
As if he's pouring on flower.
Oh my God, he was as if he's pouring on plants, it's like cultivating, watering the plants, And, the pee was like one of the fire... They need this
firewood.
It's just like it was like coming up like this, and it was flowing on the road. And then I said, "Oh my God, what the hell are you doing, man? Why are you just doing this in front of so many people? There are kids here and women here, standing and waiting for taxis, and then so many people are here. How the hell are you doing this?" And then he finished, and then he just wiped his stuff like this, and then he turned around and said, "You are nothing but a crazy," he said. And then an old woman was there, because when I was screaming and yelling at him, this woman was watching me. She wasn't really bothered about being that guy. She was really bothered about my screaming and yelling on him, and then she just poked me with her umbrella like this. "What happened to you?" she said. I turned around and said, "What happened to me?" You ask him what happened to him. You see? "Well, he's pink," she said. "Yes,
that's normal."
So you are screaming and yelling at him because he's pink? I said, "Yes, Mom." She said, "What is he going to pee? Unless he pee in his country,
Shame on her.
Yeah, you know. And then I said, Mama, this is not right. Say, yes, it is, because he doesn't have to leave his home to be somewhere else. You know, it was so funny though.
Yeah, it's really funny. Anyway, so you do have a nickname called Gasha Ramola.
Yeah.
Yeah. How did you, acquire that name?
Well, this is a story of, like, we said Gashe to someone that is elder to you.
That's to show seniority.
Yeah, yeah. And then this is just like a character that I came up with. But this character was not really fictitious. It was based on a true story of people everywhere in Ethiopia.
Okay.
You know, elders like to give advice to people. You know, when you are neighbors, you know, my father is not only my father, it's my father, it's your father, it's everybody is, you know, close to each other, and then they share everything communally. And then I happened to write this story as Gashabara Mulla, a man, an elderly man who work and live and live in harmony with all his neighbors. So people love him, you know, respect him. So I came up with this character of a man who is being loved by his neighbors, by his friends, by his, you know, community, so he can be able to be listened by his people. So he advises people, he tells stories to people, he sings like a man like this, and then Gasha Barramula. And then this man, to me, there was a tall man, you know, he has this long cane in his hands, and he walks like this. He was an amazing, handsome person, and then he used to walk from Shro Meda all the way down to Maskal Hadababai. You know, I see him all the time. I used to go to school at Male Lexicon School, and then most of the time I see him, and then that man, he comes to me when I was thinking of this Gasha Barramula, a man with a stake, and then you see his bare hands here. He has a gabi in his hands and his mask over, and he has this streak. He's got a, you know, a big afro hair like this, and he was an amazing person. And then that personality came to me along with the lyrics, along with that story. So whenever I write that, I start imagining that person, and then that person comes to me. So I wrote that story, and they said Gash Abarra Mulla. Yeah, these three words, Gash Abarra Mulla, became a good name. So it's a catchy name, actually. If I
Is that an ideal guy or existed?
Existed. That person existed.
Has existed.
But I put my story.
You try to characterize that person.
That person.
The real person in your lyric and story.
Yes.
I appreciate it.
Yes. And then it fits.
It fits.
It fits. It fits so beautifully.
Yeah.
And then I came up. I did a performance at the National Theatre, Gasha Barramula.
I know.
Yeah, and that was shown for almost a year. And then I went to, like, I had a concert in Bishoftu, I had a concert in Adama, everywhere. I mean, in Jimma either. Where else did I go? In Gondar, Gojam, and all these places. And then I traveled. The second year, I traveled most parts of Ethiopia, even Waliso I went to. And then people got very familiar with Gasha Barramula. Now this character became so famous. Now this character took me to the cleanup. And then this man is telling, I mean, to have a nice, clean neighborhood, you know, he is a person who is getting along with all the community around him. And so that character came within this framework.
Okay. Even when you get back from America, once on a show entitled, I don't really remember that show, you cried out. That on Alabisho?
That was on Alabisho, yeah.
It was, I mean, talking about a city. The city was very slum and got an unpleasant smell, got bad staffs, and you were heartbroken and cried out, right?
Yeah.
And you launched a campaign under the name Gashabara Mola.
Yes.
And you've been working with the community, with the neighborhood, even by traveling different towns in the region, right?
Yeah.
In the meantime, these days, the new government under Abiy Ahmed launched a clean campaign and a tree planting campaign as well. How did you see this one? And how did you compare and contrast beauty and hygiene and all stuff with that of those days?
Well, let me start with the Prime Minister's project on clean and green. I'm a committee of that one. On the Riverside project, one. On the first, on the 3 billion tree planting project. Now it came to 5 billion. I am a part of it. I work with the Prime Minister. We launched together. We went together to Awasa. You remember last time?
Yeah, I remember.
I was on the launching with him. So I'm a part of it. But as you mentioned, I mean, what makes me so interesting was when you dream, you tell your dream to a dream analyst, isn't it? And the dream analyst tells you an amazing meaning to your dreams. You know, my dream was to see and change.
Definitely.
Before the Prime Minister Abiy came, I've been working for 23 years, day and night. Not only in Addis, everywhere. You know, as you mentioned, Dredwa, Harar, Jijiga, Afar, everywhere for 23 years. And then doing this, actually, I got I have a United Nations award. I don't know if you know that.
I know.
I got a United Nations award. I stood first from Africa on planting trees and clean up cities. I've got a Green Gold Award at the House of Commons in London. And the IHA, which is International Health Association awards. I've got so many awards actually. And then when the Prime Minister came up with this great ideas, I say, well, my dream came true. You know, my dream came true. And imagine when Abiy comes, aside of the politics, he look the Toto project, the Riverside project, everywhere he does what he does.
The Unity Park.
It's unbelievable, and unbelievable. I mean, with all he has
for you, it's like a dream come true.
Yeah, the dream come true. That's what I say. Somebody gave me, somebody analyzed my dream to become reality.
Appreciate it. Okay. In year 2014, on a podium, African poetry, you have presented an amazing story of
in Durban, South Africa.
In South Africa, I guess. You told a story that never ends. Can you tell us about it?
Did you hear that before? So I'm going to tell to the people.
Sure.
Yeah. Okay. As well, you see, I'm not only a musician. I'm a storyteller. I've been reciting so many stories in different parts of the world, actually. My musical performance goes along with storytelling. So I do recite poetry, in the meantime playing the krar. Because, you know, in Ethiopia, in Africa actually, like your father and mother, when they want to sing or dance, they just come up and do it, you know. They don't have to. They are so free, you know. In Africa, people like to express themselves in a free way. I mean, not in a very well restricted, designed, or programmed kind of thing, you know. The Westerners, they are so much of the technique.
They're so procedural.
Procedures. There's so many procedures and stuff like that. Here in Africa, people play from their heart.
Sure.
That is what the art is. Art is. They say science, art is science. No, science is art by itself. if you see this, the background of the world on your side, and the cities everywhere, it's art in terms of colors, in terms of designs, the textures, and everything. The world has a landscape, the mountains, the rivers, the hills, the plants, the animals, the sea, the oceans, and all these are art. You know, they can be measured, they can be seen, they can be tested, they can be, you know, brings feeling to yourself. So, in this story, I grew up listening to stories from my father. Actually, he used to tell me all these stories. So, I started having this storytelling project along with my music performances, and then I recited so many stories in America, and then actually one of my best stories that I did tell was in London at the Queen Elizabeth Hall.
Okay, can you tell us?
That
you will tell us this one later. First, do the Durban.
The Durban one is a story about. Actually, this is the story of the Oromo father who recited this story. This is the greatest story. The story came from Elubabo. A man who lived and heard so many different stories in the world finally couldn't find to tell a person a new story. So he couldn't find people to tell him a new story, because everywhere he go, he hears the same repetitive stories.
All over again.
All the same. I've heard. So he fed up of Europe, and then he traveled everywhere in the world, and then he heard all the stories in the world. And finally, when he was in Europe, they told him to go to Ethiopia. So he crossed the Mediterranean, and then he came through Egypt, and then he knows all the stories. So he came from north, from Tigray, and then to Bagenda. He heard them all. And then he came to Shoa also. He heard all these things. And then finally he gave up. He said, I gotta go. He said, somebody came to him, go to Elubabor, you'll hear a beautiful story. And then he came to Elubabor. And when he was there, he started going to the villages and saying, who's going to tell me the story? Who's going to tell me? Everybody was telling me. Everybody said, no, I've heard. Finally, he got disappointed. I got to go. I got to leave Elubabor. And then when he was about to leave Elubabor, he found an old man with his donkeys walking. He has a stick in his hands, and he has his shama, his clothes in his hands, and then the donkeys was going, and he looked at this man and a wonderful person. He was graceful, and he was sitting on a horse, and he was very sad, and then he was working, and then the old man got close to him and say, Romania actually was a translator. He said, what happened to you? You look so sad. What happened to you? He said, oh, get off my way. I gotta go. I've been telling these stories to many people, and then I'm so tired telling them back and forth, so I'm not going to tell you. Please leave the road, get away from me. And they said, no, I'm not going to leave you until he told me, maybe I might find a remedy for you, sadness. I don't need no medicine for me. If you have a new story, you tell me. He said, okay, come in the village. I'm not going to work. I have to tell you this story. And then he took him to his village. And all the people were sitting on the grass gathering, and the man, they gave him a bench. He was sitting on his bench, and everybody was so happy to listen to the story. This man is a storyteller, and then everybody knows him in the village. So he stood there, and the man was sitting here, and then the story begins. He said, a broken piece of a star falling in the land of Elubabor. What? A broken piece of a star falling in the land of Elubabor. Oh my God, that man was seeing all the stars falling on the ground. He've never heard. He've never visualized such an image, which has a beautiful image in that story. And then he said, and then nobody lives in this area except the ants. He was so confident that he never heard of this story. And then billions and trillions of ants were crawling, one on the top, underneath, on the side. It was a mess. Countless. They were like crawling, one on the top, the other on the side, underneath, and all this kind of thing was a mess. So one of the ants was so tired of such a life, he wants to leave that and go somewhere else. One of that ants. And then this ant started walking and walking and walking and walking and walking. And then he found a little river. He crossed that river and started walking and walking and walking and walking. And then he got into this village with a huge silo. A huge silo, big silo. And the ants was on the ground, and he looked up. He started sniffing, and he smelled a barley. Oh, he said, who's going to go up there, he said. Okay, I'm coming. And he started climbing and climbing and climbing and climbing and climbing and climbing. He got halfway, he said, I'm getting closer. He started going and walking and walking and walking and walking and walking. And then he said, I'm getting very closer now. And then he got all the way up in the top, and he found the hole, and then he got in, and then he picked one grain. And he said, here we go. The butt swinging at the back, and the head is moving. Here is the grain. He picked up the grain, and he came out, and he started walking and walking and walking and walking until his skinny legs got tired, and then he stopped. I'm getting closer to the ground because it's a long distance. And then he got to the ground and started walking and walking and walking and walking. And then he put the grain, and then he came out, and then he looked up, and then he started going up, and then he got rested because he got tired. And then 3 times he told him the same story. He said, stop,
Never end.
Stop. You're telling me the same repetitive story. Where is the end of the story?
Yeah.
He looked at him and said, he ignored him, and then went, picked the grain, and started walking and walking until his skinny leg got tired, and then he stood, and then he started going all the way down to the ground, and then he walked on the ground, and he came back. He told him 15 times, and then the man got mad, and then he just got up. I want to hear the end of the story. And the old man looked at him. So far, you have seen 15 grains. You have to wait until all the grains from the silo ends. Said the man. Hilariously, he laughed. He laughed, and they just got up and said, thank you, my Lord. Now I've got the story that never ends. I'm going to be staying in Lubabur until all the grains got finished from the silo. This is the greatest story. I will never look for any story. This is the end of the story. Even though it's the end, this is the story that never ends. And he's still in Lubabur. The man is still in Lubabur watching that grave.
Dear viewers, thank you for watching. This brings you the end of our edition for today. Hope you had an amazing time with us.